No, I mean, well, the first episode, we took it from the beginning. We took it from the beginning. Yeah. We then dived into things that matter to us and things that we felt we needed to talk about. And today we're going to look to the future. We're asking the question, what do you want to see moving forward for people of color in musical theatre, integration in musical theatre?
Hello. It is us again. So this is Khosana and it's our final episode and it's been such a journey.
It's been a blast.
I mean, it's been amazing just getting to share and converse and talk and see what you guys feel about what we're doing here. And I mean, the conversation has been very heartwarming.
Absolutely.
And it sadly has to come to an end. But I mean, we still have an action-packed, exciting episode where we discuss a way forward, a way to wrap the conversation up, because at some point this conversation has to end and we have to get to a point of action.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, well, the first episode, we took it from the beginning. We took it from the beginning. Yeah. We then dived into things that matter to us and things that we felt we needed to talk about. And today we're going to look to the future. We're asking the question, what do you want to see moving forward for people of color in musical theatre, integration in musical theatre? And I'm going to go first with what I want to see.
Yes.
On a very, very small level, I want to see people speaking up. I want to see people talking. I think we've had these conversations so many times behind closed doors, in hotel rooms, after a show, you know, when you get on the bus and you go to the back of the bus and you're so mad about something that just drove you up the wall. And it's like, why do we need to do that? Because I realized that it also breeds resentment.
It does.
It breeds resentment,
really
and it actually makes you bitter inside and almost makes you a person that you're not, you know. So let's talk, guys. Let's talk.
I think what I would like to see for the future is us taking ownership of our destinies as people of color. No longer letting it be up to someone else to book you or give you that opportunity or call you or, you know, don't wait for that phone call. Let's do it, create. If we believe strongly in our talents, which I think we all do, I think we owe it to ourselves to create and to tell our stories and put ourselves out there, because no one is going to call you and say, would you like to tell your story?
And also, I mean, how amazing, you know, you and I have been lucky enough, one of the few performers, people of color, that have been able to perform in African musicals. You know, you were part of King Kong. I was part of African Footprint. And also I was lucky enough to be part of Winnie the Opera, that tells the story of Umamu Winnie Madikizela Mandela.
Yes.
You know, and it tells it in a beautiful opera, singing in isiXhosa. And you see all these things that represent us. And I think, to be quite honest, I don't know if I've been any happier on stage than when I was in African Footprint and in Winnie the Opera, because I was being myself, you know. So I think it's really important for us to start creating our own stuff and putting ourselves out there the way the world wants us, the way we want the world to see us.
Yeah, and I think it's very important that you mentioned that Winnie story, because I think I had a similar experience with King Kong when it came to an end. It was like a moment of mourning almost, where you go, well, I found myself sitting and thinking, so now that's over, is that it? You know,
Yeah.
I could not look forward to anything else. I was going, that was amazing, and I really enjoyed that experience.
Still yearn for those days.
Yeah, and I was going, when am I going to feel that feeling again of being on stage and looking, you know the bouncing off of energies that happens on a stage.
Yes.
When I look across and I see that everyone here kind of looks like me, it was the first time experience for me, and it was a powerful experience because suddenly you are part of a team.
Absolutely.
And a team that is involving you, and a team that looks like you, and a team that you can believe once you're here.
And you know what I love about shows like African Footprint and King Kong is that they tell the story of black people, but they don't tell the story of black people being oppressed by white people. It just tells the story of black people being black people. You know, King Kong is just a man, and he's a boxer.
And I mean,
there's a Shebeen queen.
Doing the most. There's a Shebeen queen.
And they're doing their thing.
And
you know?
You're right. I love the story because it's unaffected by
completely
whiteness
unaffected.
or oppression.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's, I mean, subconsciously we knew that these people are sort of oppressed because of the time they're living in. But the story was not about oppression. And I think moving forward, we do need to tell stories of friendship, stories of...
just normal stories.
You know?
Normal stories.
Because we are not shaped by our struggle. And
absolutely.
I think our art is bigger than being, it's big enough to not be trapped in the bracket of struggle. Yeah.
So as you know, we love to continue the conversation with you on our social media platforms. Please use the hashtag #TheBlackCorner. And this week we are asking you, what would you like to see for the future for people of color in musical theatre and entertainment? We're going to link in to see a video from one of our artistic friends and hear what they have to say about their hopes for the future.
Hi there folks, Bongani Drama here. I'm an on-air personality, I'm a master of ceremonies and also a master's degree holder in the performing arts. Thank you so much for inviting me to the Black Corner, a platform where people of color are able to speak out and say their views with no fear or favor as well. So during the course of my study back at varsity when I was studying my BTech in performance in opera, vocal art performance, I'd come up and bumped into an opera called Ziankomo that was playing at the State Theatre. And to my amazement, there were so many people of color in attendance. And before that, a week prior, there was an Italian opera that was on stage, and the minority obviously was in attendance because when opera was introduced in South Africa, it was introduced for the white minority, obviously, to suppress our cultures as much as possibly as they could. Therefore, while watching Ziankomo, I could see that the black majority of people that are in attendance can relate to what's happening. Why? First and foremost is because they can see that a cow has been slaughtered on stage, something they can relate to. They see a king and a queen who are raising children, something they can relate to. Whereas if you have a German opera, a French opera, then you would have, the black, majority not understanding what's going on, in as much as, you have certain titles for us, but then they'll never understand fully of what really is happening. Therefore, that then led me to doing my master's, in which I then looked into indigenizing content of opera post 1994. What I mean about that is that, having some elements of indigenization into the content of opera, whether it's in the music, whether it's in a costume, so it is related to the people of color. If you change a little bit of content and put indigenization into it and indigenize some elements, then you are in some way or some form trying to appeal to the people of color, people, so that they're able to understand. What's the use of you as a dancer, to be calling your family members to come watch you in Chicago when they don't understand what's going on? But can I tell you, if you come and invite them to Umoja, that is more appealing to them. However, for me, it'd be great to see more people of color being given a chance. We've got beautiful creatives out there. We've got beautiful, theater managers out there. We've got amazing, talented dancers, singers out there. The only thing they need is a chance.
We are so excited to be sitting here and chatting to multi-talented performer, musical theatres, Jarryd Nurden. Hi, Jarryd.
Hi, Jarryd.
Hello, lovelies. How are you? And I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes,
It's nice.
babes.
It's lovely to see you. You and I are matching today.
I see the match.
We're
I didn't get the
matching.
memo, but it's fine.
We promised we didn't. We promised we didn't rig this.
Seems rigged to me, but I don't care.
How are you doing, Jarryd? All good?
It looks stunning.
Thank you, my darling. Thank you. So thank you for coming to the Black Corner. And we're going to start this off with a fun game.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Are you keen for a game, Jarryd?
I love a game.
Okay, so it's going to be between you guys. I'll be the facilitator. We're playing the privilege game. So how it works is you've got 10 fingers. Do you have 10 fingers?
I do.
So you'll put up your stunning. You'll put up your 10 fingers. So I'll ask you a question, and if the answer for you is a yes, all you do is you take down a finger. All right. Okay. Are you keen for the game, guys?
Yeah.
We call it the privilege game.
Yeah.
And what it is that we just want to highlight kind of the differences in, people of color and non-people of color and our standing in the industry.
Yeah.
Are you guys ready?
Let's get
Show
to
me
it.
your jazz hands. Show me your spirit fingers. Stunning. All right, Sibu and Jarryd. Have you ever had to question whether you were cast for diversity's sake? Okay. Have you ever had to fulfill roles written in racial stereotypes? Have you ever felt you needed to adapt your social behaviors in order to fit in with your cast and crew? Have you ever had to significantly shorten a list of shows that you probably won't be considered for due to your race? Okay. Have you ever had to shorten your list of dream shows because you don't see yourself represented in many of them? Have you ever had to deal with comments about races existing in the time period and location of the show and debate your place in the production? Okay. Have you ever had the doubt that you weren't taken seriously? Have you ever lost out on work because there was only room for one person who looks like you? Jeez, guys. Jarryd has 7 legs.
Is that? Oh, I have 2.
You're just standing.
Well, you only need 2 legs to stand. I think that was quite
These questions
interesting.
are hard, guys. Like, my brain was like,
That was quite interesting to answer those questions because it took me back to, with each question, it takes you back to an experience because you kind of search your mind for an experience, and yeah, that was quite telling.
It was interesting.
Absolutely.
But I love that you also had your own issues that you deal with,
100%. And that's what excited me most, which I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah,
Stunning.
I'm gonna ask you the first question now. I want to understand your journey to recognizing and being aware of your privilege and your position in our industry.
You know what? I think I have always known that, which has always been a struggle for me. Like, my privilege has always been a struggle for me from when I was able to notice it. So I guess, say, primary school already. Because, I mean, I just love everyone, right? But it upset me deeply that my privilege, the older I grew up, the more this started to happen, right? Between me and, say, my Black friends. Well, definitely my Black friends. And my Black family members, which I call, like, my maid. I mean, my Mavis, again. Like, she's my second mother, but her son grew up with me, right? But then this started to happen. And I could never understand why he wasn't going to the same school as me. Why all of these things, fundamental things, which should be equality, weren't happening, right? And that greatly upset me. Anyway, life continues, and I've always tried to counter that with my own way of living. But in the industry, it was also hard that certain leading roles in college. So when I got to university, my best friend in the whole world is Zolani Shangasi. Like, I consider him my brother. And he has one of the most incredible talents in this country. And again, there were certain roles that he couldn't get, certain opportunities that he couldn't get. And it leads me, so the journey, I was always aware of my privilege. So yeah, otherwise I'm going to go on a tangent. In brief.
I love that you've always been aware, because I have some white friends who have asked the same question too, and they say that not until recently, and they've then had to go back into the archives of their lives. They've had to go back to their primary schooling to their whatever kind of artistry you went into, if you're a singer and if you're a dancer, go back to those classes and the training. They've actually had to go back into their mind to figure out where were the scales tipped. And a lot of my friends who are willing to have the conversation, of course, because not everybody's willing to sit down and talk about this uncomfortable topic, but a lot of them actually said, oh my goodness, I actually had to call my friend that I grew up with and be like, oh my, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize you were dealing with this. So I love the fact that, you know, you recognize it, Jarryd.
I just wanted to say there quickly, Lutejo, is degrees of awareness to white privilege as the white person, right? So even though I was aware of my white privilege from a very young age, which made me very uncomfortable, even now, I'm still educating. I'm still being educated on white privilege. So I don't think that the education of it never ends, right? Or ever ends. Yeah, I'm still evolving with my knowledge. So that's why it's so great that we're having this conversation, and we have this platform to really like educate.
Absolutely. You know, speaking about, you know, the being aware of your position, I think, you know, we in our second episode of the Black Corner, we spoke about representation, you know, how the industry sees me as a person of color, and how they see you, how I'm portrayed on stage, on television, as opposed to how white people are portrayed. We also touched on things like tokenism, where you walk into a contract and you're the only Black person in the room. And, you know, I wanted to know from you, when you walk into a situation like that and you can see that the scales are really tipped, where there's kind of that many Black people and that many white people, is that something that you're aware of? Is that something that you pick up on? And what is your response to it if you do see it?
I absolutely do see it, for sure. And it's a big question.
Take your time. Take your time. Take a sip of something.
That's a diverse and layered question. Because yes, I definitely do see the scales, and that is something that does need to shift, right? Because again, like when we've been educated and we come into theatre, we all told none of us see color, we all color wash, blah blah blah, whatever. Right? It's such a lie, because clearly there's color.
Yeah.
And but I think what's so beautiful about this moment and about this movement at this time is it's really highlighting how big the issue is, number one, how far back we're needing to go to heal it and to rectify it. So, I mean, there's still so many questions for me, for instance, even, which maybe you guys could even help answer for me, is like, so I do feel that the issue is that there hasn't been enough African in like color, skin influence in our musical theatre world.
Absolutely.
Dating right back.
Yeah.
Right. So not only do you have like skin color issues, but you also have stories, right?
Yeah.
Not enough stories. So some stories are like, which are predominantly white stories, okay, and they really predominant in musical, okay. So we have emerging Black musicals coming up, which is great. But then the second question is, how far back can you change that casting, right? How far back when we casting in the future, do we go right back and just change history completely? And not history in terms of history that might matter to the show or the time period more, not the history, but the time period. And I think that's interesting, right? Because I think that's what we should be doing. because let's eradicate the fact that that history even existed, because it was just wrong, point blank, and cast the shows off our talents, but also cast color into our shows, into the leading roles, and just have that real diversity coming through.
Look, I think to bring in diversity, you have to be very intentional about it. You can't just go, okay, we're going to base it by talent, because there's so many other things that go into me then being ready to go to an audition and audition against Jarryd Nurden as a black person. There's so many things I have to first do. And so for us to be able to successfully integrate the shows, first we have to look at what we're doing with the children, because the equalizing of the scales has to start young. But now we look where we are now, and there is a solution to that as well, because if you look at a script, if the script is not the script of the color of the person, then there are smaller things in the storyline that you can change to make the experience a Black American experience or a Black South African experience. And above that, there's also suspension of disbelief. And I see opera is doing it way more. And I think that musical theater needs to step up to that, because at some point, we know that Black people were not allowed to be on stage in 1920, and they are now. So we can still tell the same stories. And
a beautiful example of that, Tibu, is Hamilton.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Where it is basically a white story told with completely Black characters, diverse characters, put it that way. Not everyone's Black in the show, but stunning. Absolutely. Right? And you didn't see color, but you were educated on what they were saying, like the intention of the show. So the story, like you say, wasn't about color. There was about educating about someone's life. And that's what I thought was very cleverly done, was that they still kept the information there, but they took out the color part.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it wasn't important.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on something important about history. The issue with history is that Black people's history is so burdenous. You know, the history that is populated about us is how we've been brutally killed and how we've been slaves and all of these things. And it's like, first of all, there's so much more in our history. And Siwa and I were talking about this the other day, where we said one thing that white people do so well is that they celebrate their icons. So there are so many musicals, so many movies, so many shows about people that have come in times that have passed, that are white people. And then you ask yourself, as Black people, why are we not doing the same? Why do we still not have a musical about Miriam Makeba?
You know?
Why do we not have a musical about all of these people that did amazing things? And also, the minute Black people tell stories on a big scale, it has to be so heavily burdened. You know, we have to tell a story of slavery and this and that. And it's like, can't I just tell a story about Lesego, who is just living her life and is not, her life is not influenced by any other person's race? Can you not? You know. Because I have so many stories about myself that have nothing to do with race or being prejudiced or being, you know, systemic racism or the Black corner. Or, I've got so many stories. And
basically like a Black Legally Blonde.
A Black Legally Blonde. Just a silly story, and just tell the story. And it's just wonderful. And you're just following the story of this girl. Yeah, completely.
I think that's a really good example, using Legally Blonde, for instance, is where that musical is stunning, right? It is fabulous. It has got amazing dance numbers. It's entertaining, all of that kind of stuff. And yet, even Mean Girls, for instance, right? Yeah. New musical. But we need Black characters. We need Black musicals like that, where you're just telling positive, uplifting, socially interactive musicals about those stories. Like, I don't know how Bonang became famous. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, but I mean, why not? You know, whatever it is. But we don't always have to be portrayed, and we've got so many stories to tell. Yeah. So many stories to tell.
And they don't have to be sad, and they don't have to be negative.
Yeah.
Or like about death.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Can I say one more thing? When my finger went down, right? So the first time I got to experience what you guys experience on a much smaller scale is the fact that I could not be in Lion King. I talk about all the time.
That was such an interesting point, Jarryd. And to continue the conversation, we want to hear from one of you at home on how you really feel about what we've just been discussing today.
Hello, my name is Sean Wolf,
And I am Grant van Stad.
and we are the co-founders of Figure of Eight Dance Collective.
For people of color to equalize the scales for themselves where systemic racism is concerned in musical theatre and entertainment, a few solutions come to mind as a result of our experience. So I think it's very important for us to create our own work and to create these platforms for us, to showcase this work, and also for us to tell our stories and the uniqueness
Yes.
of our stories.
Yeah. For example, choreographing our own dance work, writing new scripts, directing our own shows, share our diverse culture, ideas and creation that speak of us, creating the opportunity and the space to explore collaboration, and also the need to create diverse leadership and to continue the dialogue, because racism does not magically disappear.
So ultimately, moving forward, we need to adapt and we need to grow and just take the industry by storm and create our work and share it to the masses.
That was heartwarming. And now we get to talk to emerging icon, musical theatres, Namisa Mdlalose. Namisa, babes.
Hi, Namisa.
Hey, baby.
Unjani?
I'm alright. It's just cold in Cape Town, guys. It's not a joke. Like, it's not funny.
Welcome to the Black Corner. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you had
Thank you for having me.
things to do, but here you are having these conversations that are so tricky to have, but we have to have them.
Yeah.
I firstly want to congratulate you on your Flirter Cup Award. I think that is absolutely amazing, absolutely incredible. She has won the supporting the supporting actress in a musical.
I looked at that category and I was actually quite gooped when, obviously I was hoping you'd win, but when you did win, I was like, it's an iconic moment because
It was a big moment
when
for
you
us.
look at that list of nominees, babes.
Babes.
So
I was literally like, oh, this is so cool. I got nominated. And then I was like, let me look at the list. And I was like, okay, well, that was nice. But yeah, I'll just put that resume nominated for a thing,
Yeah. So, Namisa, let's get into it. The world is going through a revolution of conversation and bringing up basically the cat is out the bag, the secrets are out. And I just want to know, as a young upcoming icon, what is your take on the conversation as a person of color in musical theater? How do you feel about everything that's been going on?
To tell you the truth, I'm exhausted. It's all very, very exhausting and important, but also exhausting. And because these conversations are far more traumatic to have than as a person of color with experience and story and history and transgenerational trauma. So not only are we carrying our own things and our own experiences, but we're carrying 400 years of lineage of experiences and heartache, etc., into 2020, into our existence now. So honestly, as there have been some joys, obviously, and some breakthroughs and important things have been happening, obviously. But in and around that is just exhaustion. I'm tired. We've been having these conversations. While you guys are talking and listening to the interview, I was thinking back to like my first experiences and when did I know, and I can tell you stories of when I was 3, 4, 5, 6.
Tell us one.
And I've always known. Always known.
Tell us one of those stories. I'd love to hear one of your experiences.
In theatre, I remember, those like nativity plays that they put on, like when you're in grade 1.
Yeah.
It's like a welcome to the school, everyone participates sort of thing. And our school never really did that. And for the first time, our school was going to put on a play. I think I was in grade 2. And I remember they were saying, okay, the teachers are going to choose which children will be what character in the show. So if you apply to be chosen for that category, it doesn't matter what you want to be, you will just get what you get, and you just have to be happy with it. And I actually was thinking about it now, the first time I've ever really thought about it. And I remember thinking it was either that option or you just go directly into the choir. Like you don't have to audition for the choir, you just automatically go into the choir. And I remember thinking, as an 8-year-old, mind you, I remember thinking, like, what are the chances of me getting married, for instance?
Wow.
The chances are very slim. Because in my lifetime, even growing up in the church, I had never, ever imagined Mary to be anything other than wise. So who do I think I am? I'm going to get Mary's role or anything. So I was thinking, I don't want to be a tree. So I immediately just said, I'll go into the choir. Because as an 8-year-old, I counted myself out because I knew that there was no way that they were going to put me as anything other than, a tree or a log or maybe, sheep number 3 there at the back. And I remember that every other black girl, and there were like what, probably 6 to 8 of us in a class of 64 of black girls in my primary school, and every single one of those black girls chose to be in the choir too. And I'm pretty sure it's for the same reasons.
Fast forward to now, do you get briefs now where you look at it and you count yourself out immediately for like a show or, whatever it is?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I definitely counted myself out with Kinky Boots. Kinky Boots was a surprise to me.
Wow.
Wow.
I remember looking at the brief and I was like, okay, so no, ensemble maybe? Okay, cool. And I literally went into it thinking, okay, cool. Well, Nam, you're just gonna you have to be grateful or happy to just get ensemble, and you just can't be sad about it.
That just breaks my heart because
so it was very surprising. And also because we worked on King Kong together, so obviously the few God knew me, so I was very confused as to why they were making me read for these people who are clearly white. Like, looking at the brief, I was like, "You're all Caucasian." Like,
I find that very sad that even at the age of 8, and even to this day, when you're a fully realized woman, that you have to box yourself. You have to box yourself to ensemble. You have to box yourself to the choir at the early age of being 8 years old. The fact that you have to rationalize like that and see yourself in the world, it's very sad. And with a person with the amount of talent that you have, to look at a script and say, oh, maybe I'll just go for ensemble. For me, it breaks my heart because it proves how much we constantly in our own capacity are diminishing ourselves because of what we've been led to believe is our place in the world. Yeah. Difficult one.
Yeah, and if you had to write down a list of things that would be implemented today to help you as a woman of color live and experience this industry better, what would, let's say 3 things?
That's a tough one. That's a very tall ask. I don't know.
Take your time, take a breath.
It's a big one, but I'll jump in and maybe, help jog your juices. But for me, one of the big things that I mentioned earlier on is representation across all boards. I think sometimes we think representation just means people on the stage, but it means people off the stage, people behind the camera, people that are rigging the stage, people that are in places of management. Because for me, it's just not enough that you're going to give me more room on space. I actually need more room across the board.
I think I would love to see POCs in positions of power, not just the director. I want to see Black producers in theaters because that's not a thing.
Yeah.
I haven't. Well, at least for me, I haven't experienced a single one. And I've only just I've been 3 years in. So who am I to say? But I'd love to see that kind of thing happening in representation, not only just on script on paper as performers, but people behind the scenes as well. Those people are important. They're the ones who make the decisions at the end of the day. They're the ones who say yes or no. Even if something is authentic on stage that Black performers are doing, they're the ones who say we don't want it or we don't like it. So it doesn't matter as a performer how much you're putting forward, how many ideas you're saying, or saying this is what Blackness looks like for me. If the producer doesn't like it, they don't like it, and it needs to be shut down immediately. And that's happened before. I've seen that happen. when it's been like a black show and then someone on top didn't like something happening and then it shut down,
Wow.
or changed or kind of compromised itself. I would also like to see Tina as of people of color taking chances, shooting your shot, making things happen. I think that COVID has taught me is like I can't wait anymore for someone to like call me or suggest or anything. If I know people, even if those people are not POCs, you say, hey, darling, I want this thing to happen. How do I make it happen? Teach me.
Hashtag
And you
book
take up
yourself.
your own space. People are not going to always make room for you. You need to make room for yourself.
Yeah.
So even if you do have that phone number somewhere or know someone who might have that director's name or that producer, etc., you confront them and you say, we like to talk about these things, which is important, and I'm not negating that. But also, we need to make movement. If you don't see movement happening, make the movement.
Absolutely.
I'm also preaching to myself here.
Yes, all of us. But I think I really like that. I've got a very close friend of mine, and her new hashtag, her new thing is I book myself. And I love that because that's exactly what you're saying. No, that's her thing. That's her thing. She's like, hashtag I book myself. And I love that she's not saying that she's not going to take work from anybody else. What she's saying is that she's going to make things happen. If I want to do something, I'm going to reach out to people around me. I'm going to see how I can make this happen in my own way. And I just quickly want to bring Jarryd in. Mm-hmm. I want to know from Jarryd's perspective, what are you, Jarryd, in your own capacity, moving forward? How are you going to play a role in kind of equalizing the scales, of what we can call, and I don't like to use this term, but I'm going to have to use it, racial, systemic racism. How are you going to move forward as Jarryd?
Well, as Jarryd at the moment, all I can be is hold people accountable, right? In conversations, in work environments that I find myself in. I can question producers that I'm going to be working with, or question motives in a show that I'm in, per se. As Jarryd evolves in his career, I would love to completely bring in people of color into creative teams. If I'm on a project, right? If I'm not directly involved, that's how I would like to see things. We're almost having a new beginning in theatre in general, right? At this moment, COVID has completely shut everyone down, right? And theatre is never going to be the same anyway. So it's a great opportunity for us to think, how are we, going to get theatre back up and running? And when we do and how we do it, let's make sure that all of those things are implemented right from the get-go, so that we just keep growing and just stop what has been. Because yes, like Namisa said, she's exhausted, right? And
all are.
Everyone is. And it's that notion that we just need to go, okay, cool. Like COVID has taught everyone, it's time to take action. It's like everything is in the open now, but let's just start doing this within our capabilities, right? So it's all fair and well on a chat or on a video we say, oh, we're going to change the world, we're going to do all these big things. But let's start small, like with what can we actually do right now? And then as my portfolio grows, okay, cool, that means my responsibility grows.
We have to, you're absolutely right, Jarryd. We have to take responsibility, and we cannot be passive about the change. We have to be active about it. And you coming on the show you're being active at the same time, and I want to thank you and I'm going to direct this particularly to you, Namisa. I'm not keeping you out here. I can only imagine, Jarryd, what it must have felt like for you to, you were so gracious in how you responded and communicated with us and our team and everything. But I can just imagine that every time your phone beeped, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to do the show and I have to talk about this, and it can't be easy. So what would you say to other non-people of color that are afraid to come forward and have these uncomfortable conversations and be put on blast like this,
Is number one, just be authentic, right? Be true That's all you can ever be. Is true to yourself and authentic, because then you're actioning and you're speaking from the right place, right? From your heart. And third is educate. Like, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts with like Oprah and like everything that I've been sharing and with everyone, right? And a lot of the things is what white people are experiencing is like, I know so many of my friends, just in general, like who are fence sitters. I call them fence sitters, or I'll call them Switzerland, right? And I'm like, babes, can you choose a country which actually has an opinion? Like, and that's what I like my white friends to do, is to go, and also my black friends, is to allow the white people to make mistakes in their conversation, right? Because and I think that was something Oprah said, is was like, make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because from mistakes we learn. It's like when we're dancing, it's like when we're singing, like when we're acting. What is good though is that we are speaking.
Mm-hmm.
What is good though is that we are sitting. What is good is that we are educating. So there is a lot of good. It is so exhausting for you guys, like 100%. Like, of course, understand that. But for my white friends, I just want to keep saying, don't stop the conversation, and just be proactive with that shift, with educating our people.
Absolutely.
Action.
I love that. I love that we can create the future, that we have the ability to create the future. And speaking about the future, we're going to round up our conversation today with a video link about what we want to see, what do we want to see in the future.
Firstly, I want people of color to tell their own stories. I want us to be in positions of power, sitting at the table, and rightfully so, making the decisions that affect our people of color in the entertainment community. I want to see representation of more than just one person of color in a production, often referred to as the so-called token black character or performer. That needs to change. And not just what you see on stage, but from a production level. And I want to hear of black artists being paid less than white artists, or not being afforded the same privileges within contractual agreements because of racial discrimination. I know, it's a real thing. That mentality comes from years of white privilege at the top making the decisions. These are things I have to hear within our community, and I'm tired. We need people of color sitting at the table, fighting for our rights and general respect. Because if someone of color, who's not in perhaps a position of leadership, speaks up to what I've just described, we are seen as angry, disrespectful, ungrateful. We need to know our place. Who do we think we are? We should all be tired of these hostile racial environments within our community, when all we want is respect and to be treated fairly. That being said, I want to see successful black directors, show producers, choreographers, creative directors, artist developers within our live entertainment and theatre community. They're just too few.
And so we have come to the end of our 4-part series, The Black Corner. And I have to be honest, I'm feeling a little bit happy, but I'm also feeling sad.
It is sad. I kind of feel like my child is going off to university.
Oh. But I think we've done a great job at taking such a big topic and dissecting it over 4 parts and honestly look into the future, which is the important thing really at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been such a wonderful journey, and it's been so beautiful to hear what you've had to say and to see your bravery in how you've told your stories. And we're just so excited to go into the future and to take it upon ourselves, to make something out of ourselves.
Absolutely. And even though the Black Corner is over, the conversation does not stop. So wherever you are, wherever you go, make sure that you use your mouth and you remember the things that we've discussed here, and that it's okay, first of all, to be a person of color, but it's also okay to speak up.
Yes, to remember that the conversation is just the beginning.
Absolutely.
The real impact comes when you stand up and do something.
Absolutely.
So action is the most important thing. And the conversation is just the beginning, really.
Until the next time that we see you, I am Lesego van Niekerk.
And I am Sibusiso Mxhosana.
And this is The Black Corner.
Love
We'll
and
see
gratitude.
you soon.